The tolerance for evil in our midst, in whatever guise, the normalization, the excuses, the justification, the filtering, we delude ourselves we are civilized when in reality we are barbarous. How to lift ourselves out of this swamp. How to transform our outlook, not in deception or words, but in an ever-present critical analysis of ourselves and others. How to envisage a template of the good man or woman and to seek to emulate it. How to find like-minded and to organise to form a network of other souls seeking to handle their flaws. Accepting it is not about having the majority or a large minority, but the few that matter who have courage and honesty and sacrifice. I have a personal interest. My interaction with official Ireland. I am going to specify the Department of Social Protection and the local intro office, and all the services that serve the homeless and the vulnerable and the outsider communities. Be that professional charities or volunteer charities that are multi-million organisations, or the county council that are the providers of the homeless hostels or housing, or even the planning permission and overall plans for new housing in a local authority area. The culture in all these organisations, once they realise you have no backing of any kind, once they realise you give a damn about standards not just for you but for others, once they realise you are trying to be a kind soul, once they realise all this, the culture is to crush you, break you to accept the narrative and to conform like everyone else. In other words, they get you to sell your soul. They lie, they obfuscate, they ask questions in their interrogation they have no right to ask, they evade. They gang up and they support each other in these attacks. They psychologically torture you. Those who murder the soul murder the body. Therefore they are murderers. The people who work for the Department of Social Protection are the worst kind of human beings to deal with. Do not turn your back on the kind and the vulnerable to these depraved, unhinged specimens of humanity. Cloth don't make it a man or woman, no matter how extravagant the cloth. Look past their clothes and accents and beauty treatments and education and know you are dealing with monsters. I have had enough of them. I have had enough of being lied to and messed about by all the civil and public service and state-funded agencies. I have had enough of being lied and messed about by the law industry, be that the police or the court services or the solicitors or barristers or prison agencies. I've had enough of being lied to and messed about by the politicians. Where to go to? All I need are people throughout these islands to stand not just with me but with others, to be a witness and an advocate, driven not by wage or benefit but the love of their fellow human being, or failing that, a contempt for those who abuse power. To know you are not alone, for the staff and management of the intro to know I have backup that will lead to repercussions if there is a hint of abuse. There will be an official registered complaint. There will be demands for removal from a position. There will be demands made of the manager to actually manage. There will be legal repercussions to the price of a fine and instruction to do a fit job. There will be demands made of the politicians and senior civil servants to investigate and formulate a report and act on it. There will be public discourse of the individual or group of staff responsible for the wrong or wrongs. In other words, they now know the staff I am not in the group where there is permission to walk upon a fellow human being. For in these organisations there is a culture of tolerance for the staff to treat certain people abysmally as a perk to retain them and to keep them motivated and to direct their inherent anger. There is no official department policy, nor is there any written down instructions or rules or protocols or union regulations or laws passed by the Dáil for staff to be so obnoxious. It is purely a culture. As a society we tolerate it, for we believe some must be thrown under the bus for us to benefit and to have a relatively easy life and some semblance of security. Most people believe this, if not publicly, certainly in deed at least. The belief there is a limit of resources, so therefore corner the market of resources for us and have others as leisure time starved work slaves for you. But this mentality spreads throughout the broader society and rots it when it comes to hard drugs and alcohol and prostitution, including paedophile rings, and fraud and expensive rents and mortgages and insurance and pricey cars. But I don't believe in this limit of resources. I believe there is enough. I don't believe people have to be sacrificed. I really don't. Maybe that makes me dangerous. Who gives these god-awful people the right in the intro centre to walk all over me? I'm not just talking in the local intro centre, but in every one of them in this state. It has to stop. Every philosophy will support them, be it the liberals, the environmentalists, The Conservatives, the Republicans, the Socialists, the Communists, the Anarchists, the Religious, they will all support the person with power. The person behind the counter with the law behind them and the numbers, whether they be right or wrong. Nobody supports the soul who is powerless. No philosophy. No philosophy will support the powerless right or wrong as a counterbalance against the abuses of power. This is barbarous. This is the embodiment of hell. Deals are done to protect the abuser. The culture of abuse continues. You will continue to be abused. That's all the system gives you to today. Why do they seemingly respect many but walk over the few? Physical fear, verbal fear, fear of socialization, isolation, fear of colleagues, fear of the law, fear of friends and family. It comes down to fear. Their true nature is to be evil, but thankfully their rings are clipped through fear. The true nature of these people implied in intro and equivalence are immutable. It will not change now nor in the future. Ever thus, there has to be a network that is on the side of the powerless against those who play God. If I am wrong and misguided, what harm is there in such a network? If I am right, the harm is incalculable in such a network not existing. Surely in this life we must leave ripples in society that benefit us now and in the next generation. This will be one such ripple. For there is an onus on us to cause angst for those who are evil-minded by rightful actions. In fact, it may be one of the few times to have a legitimate smile in the soul when aggravating the depraved. For me, I hope to get a PSC card in the immediate future. I know they will seek to mess me about when it comes to the appointment times. They will lie when it comes to the documents required. They will seek to interrogate me and overreach what questions they can ask and will seek to run down my character and to distress me. No, I have had enough. I need people with me who will stand with me to react straight away and to set boundaries and to begin the process of complaint if required. Because now that I am, hopefully, in the position to complain, it will be a grievous wrong if I don't do so, otherwise the wrong will continue against somebody else. This PSC card is required for me to go on the housing list for the county council. Seemingly my housing application is lost as I claim to have no record of it. I also need to get a driver's license and also as ID to collect post from the post office. But it's not the card that counts. It's to know if I can get people made out of the right kind of stuff to stand with me against the intro staff. Because I haven't got welfare off them for 10 years, they may buzz off this. I accept that's a reflection of the state of their conscience, and they know exactly what is going on because intro staff make it their business, like the prudes that they are, to know everybody's business. How do you make them publish and disclose the truth? How do you make them bring out their supervisor and their manager? How do you make them talk civilly to you without making false allegations against you? How do you get the people in the community on your side when they ring the police or on the basis of a false allegation? How do you shame the police into taking your side? How do you shame the so-called customers who kiss ass the intro staff to keep their beaks out of my business and every man and woman trying to be a kind soul's business? My letter accusation gets to one of the kernels of the cancer of Irish society, the informer, and the vindictive nature of seeing a fellow human being in the gutter and keeping them there. How do you get the security of these organisations from pushing you about and assaulting you and insulting you and protecting the organisation to abuse you? Surely any philosophy worth its salt would exclude those employed in the security industry from joining or associating with them. For that industry routinely hammers the souls of the oppressed as if they are doing Satan's work. How can you march in lockstep with those who abuse power? I have no means, no dependents, no assets, no savings. I only have a little social capital. That I would like to see explode throughout these islands to a formidable network that not only benefits me but others. So surely I am entitled to get a clothing grant of the CWO, the Community Welfare Officer. Now it will be called another name and they will hide behind words to deny me such money. In other words, they will lie with gusto, with the official backing of the union movement, therefore the socialist movement. Socialism as practiced in Ireland, the movement that crushes the powerless. I won't get this money unless I have the backing of a network that can cause serious repercussions straight away. The intro will lead me to die. All I know is this. If I was a taxpayer, that would outrage me, and it happens every day in this state. We need to make the law work for us, not for us for the practitioners of law. We should have solicitors employed by us on a wage and not a seaman contract. We should have standards and reviews of solicitors and barristers. We should assume they are trying to stitch us up. Their main drive should be to deal with administrative law, then move on into other areas. At the moment, with the system employed, there are too many are being left to rot. This should be followed into other professions such as the medical. Why in the modern era are so many being walked over or forgotten about by the few in a profession protected by the elites and the state? Many think that you make the system work for you, but no, in reality, the system makes you work for them. In a system designed or tolerated to be corrupt in terms of denying and lying and reducing. Such a system will employ a certain kind of character who will look after those of similar character, and the self-hate of these people will make sure they will stymie and diminish those of a kind nature. These people are the enemy. I think of Angus, who was in hospital and treated abysmally because he believed he was categorised as a junkie. No, Angus, you are treated that way because you give a damn about your fellow human beings. If you are on heroin and selfish and a convicted sex offender, the hospital would have treated you like a god. I've seen it too many times in hospitals. CWOs have the most appalling attributes of humanity. They are the template of what you don't want to emulate. They are what you don't want your children to grow up to be. They are like finding out your father was a Nazi officer, enough to make you vomit if there's any semblance of decency within you. In their tiny cubicle office, they will play judge, jury, and executioner with you, like Satan taking on the robes of Christ to judge. The whole system giving them free writ to demean you and psychologically butcher you and to destroy you. This has got to stop. They need to know there will be consequences, serious consequences. They can give out nothing to the best and then give out unlimited amounts to the worst. They can make up unfounded reasons against the best and then make up stories to protect the worst. They are unaccountable in reality. There is internal reviews by their own kind who will not find against them. It is a kiddie fiddler's wet dream to get a job like that of a CWO. These misanthropes get a chance to legally walk all over the kindest. When you go to the cubicle to face the CWO for the clothing allowance, you're not made aware of the national criteria or the local or the specific CWO's criteria for getting it. You are throwing darts in the dark and hoping to obtain it. This is a medieval law court very much in the tradition of the Spanish Inquisition. You may appeal, but it's just to more senior members of the Inquisition who are the real practitioners of the dark arts. How is this legal? How is this tolerated? How can the court support such an obscurantist legal proceeding? For in reality, the courts are farming out responsibility to a depraved minion without legal training to do their bidding. The people who choose to be dregs will be of the belief that there is only so much money within the CWO's treasure chest, that there is a culture and associated protocols and a restricted list as to who gets access to it. They don't want to see that upended. I don't care about their unfair worldview. Do you? Do you not think if there is a God, he would expect you to wind these people up by making the playing field more even and fair? I remember the Labour Exchange as a young boy. The manager was creating false accounts to magic up money for his pub drinking. He wasn't ever seen in the Exchange. Instead, he left it to 3 wagons to run the affair. The way they treated men who had worked all their lives was despicable. Men who hit the wall of the 80s recession. These wagons treated the worst of the worst as gods. Men would be queuing for hours, snaking in line only to have the doors at lunchtime shut on their faces in an insulting manner. It was a sick power trip. I sum it up like this. I went around the back to have a slash against the wall of the old Exchange as a young boy during the lunch break. I used to hear about the safe full of money to the point I got to thinking there was gold ingots in the place. So I saw this hole in the wooden timbered wall, and I looked in hoping to see the lolly. The 3 wagons who are married or engaged to be married were having enough of every depraved joker from the town and beyond inside the building during the break. It was the porn channel for hell before my eyes. I switched channel quickly. All the staff were Republican. With friends like that, who needs enemies? My kind of Republicans would be of the minority pursuit, who would have no time for those who work for the system like these wagons. I remember one man being so annoyed at being shabbily treated, walking away from the queue. He could have got paid that day, but instead he went and got a loan off a friend of about 100 quid, and later that day I saw him getting the Slattery's bus. He told me to bail out as he thought Ireland was effed. Respect. Respect being more than a number, being actually treated as a human being. Of course they will dehumanise themselves in reality when they seek to do that to you. Who gives them the right to create groups who they legitimise to walk upon? If in my dealings with the system I cannot be treated with respect, how can that carry on into any other aspects or fields of human endeavour? I should willingly sacrifice my soul to be crushed? No, this is a test case. This is the start to make the system treat me with respect. Then we follow through into other areas. In my dealings with human enterprise, I am excluded and harassed and intimidated. I can live with that if there is acknowledgement of it and there is alternatives for those of us who want to live in a civilised way. So it is a four-legged stool. First they exclude you and invoke legality to do so, and here legality is they have the power and you don't. Then secondly, you are not welcome. They have the numbers game. Fear and peer pressure, the bane of humanity and the driver of the crowd, the lowest common denominator and the real criminal mafia known as a society. Thirdly, I don't belong. I cannot be a member of a club based on hate and hurt and being masked by bonhomie. And fourthly, the most critical part of the leg, leaving no one behind. This is what marks out anyone worthy to walk this fair green world. There is no room for all right jacks. In other words, even if I benefit through a network that will stick with me, not provisionally for now, but for as long as I draw breath, we must always think of others. For I am the other. This is not space. People should hear you scream. How to make a network or networks of different stripes that think of others but create mutuality to enforce respect and a space to live in consensual peace. Of course, enforcing respect is enforcing fear. But these people only understand fear. You reason with them with a hidden or phony stick at your disposal, the stick being metaphorical. Again, do not direct me to the private charities. Because they are a private institute, they don't have to adhere to rules and fair practice and explain their motives. They can and will discriminate unfairly and be unaccountable. They have an entitlement to play God. They have access to the most vulnerable. It is a huge monumental step to ask for help and to surrender your independence. The people asking for help are in a psychological nightmare to begin with. Then there are others who ask for help who do not care for their spouse nor children. In fact, they don't care for anyone, and their price is cheap. It really means charities that care for the vulnerable like this will attract the most unsavoury to volunteer and work for them. And these kind of people will take control and alienate those who think of others and believe in fairness. Give charities like the Vincent de Paul nothing. The reality is very few will help. The rest may offer conditional help, which is ultimately about helping themselves. The Christian Brothers and others may have raped and abused the children, but Ireland held them down to be raped and abused. We have to take ownership of the evil to be free of it. I don't need enablers in my life. The majority who will tell you give them one more chance and they are good people. Nothing changes and the evil continues. This is enabling. You become part of the problem. You are the problem by being an enabler. So to make this network manifest, to get all hands to the pump in terms of bodies and ideas and relationships, volunteer not professional, 24 hours, 365 days a year, not like the private charities dependent on the continuance of human misery for a profession and not bringing about local or national reform, not being urgent, not castigating the abusers, not the politicians whose non-vigilance and care has brought us to this situation and who will allow the present conditions to prevail and are dependent on the I am all right Jack attitude to hold sway. Pick them off one by one because of their selfishness. That is not me. That is not my tribe that I have spent all my life looking for. You can leave your willingness to help me on my Facebook account through support via words or feet, witness or legal advice. And you can give genuine advice via the comments as well to deal with the power brokers and to organise via the internet and social media. Don't worry, if I get the traction, I will get a serious amount of organised and wannabe losers condemning me and looking for the smart accolades. They are losers because they've lost their souls. They are not an irrelevance. Only the people who give a stuff are what matters. So pass the word on, reshare, drum up support, join, organise, Put the head above the parapet, much appreciated. Thank you.